Classical Academy Board of Directors to order at 6:01 on Wednesday, July 17th. The LCCA mission is to train the minds and improve the hearts of young people through a content-rich classical education in the liberal arts and sciences with instruction in the principles of moral character and civic virtue. And with that, would you please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the roll call show that all board members are present. And with that, to move to the agenda. Regarding tonight's agenda, would anybody like to motion to approve the minutes of our June 19th meeting and July 11th meetings?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Anybody would like to move to approve our agenda today?
Motion to approve this agenda.
Anybody like to second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, the agenda passes. With that, we move to our citizens forum, and before we get to that, I wanted to just mention a few things here. One is kind of housekeeping, a suggestion that a couple parents made in our June meeting that I thought was a really good one. I want to circle back on that. First of all, you'll notice that we have one less board member tonight. We would like to very much thank Taryn for all of her contributions to LCCA and her service to the board, and wish her every blessing. With respect to closing the loop, a couple parents mentioned, I believe this was in the June meeting, asking about becoming a board member and how does that happen. So anybody who's interested, if we're interested in anybody who is interested, we have on the LCCA website now a document that explains both what we're looking for in board members, looking for specific experience, as you can imagine, and the process, sending an email in, and then when we're going to be working on replacing board members, we're going to dust them all off, we're going to contact everybody. The way to find this, go to our homepage and then go to board. There's a section for the board. Scroll down about halfway down. There's a sentence that said if you're interested in becoming a board member or learning more, there's a live link there. So thank you to the parents who brought that up. That is now live and active on the website. With respect to the next portion of our meeting, Citizens Forum, the board passed a couple months ago an amendment to this part of the meeting, and the theme for that amendment is decorum. So what we've been experiencing the last couple meetings is kind of drifting in a direction that we think could be potentially divisive and disruptive to board meetings. So in terms of how we're comporting ourselves as a group, we're asking everybody to keep their comments to agenda items so we can keep the board focused on the meeting. Things like clapping, jeering, heckling. We had a situation where one of our teachers was disparaged by name. All those things are things that we will be avoiding in our meetings and want to avoid in our meetings. So with that, and we have a 20-minute set aside for this. Stacy, I know you have some forms that were turned in. We'd love to hear from parents on agenda-related items. And who do we have first?
Mike Octor.
Mike who?
Octor.
Octor?
Octor, like doctor.
Sorry.
You're good, you're good. Not the first person to screw it up. So make sure by the microphone. Before we begin, I would like to thank Brian. Actually, how many people are going? Will determine the pace. Do you know how many people are set to?
We want to know how many
people are set. That's going to determine
he knows how much time.
content.
There's only 3, so you have 3 minutes.
Oh, we don't even have to go fast.
And what's your topic, please?
It was on the sheet.
Stacy.
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
There we go. It's in here somewhere. All right. Before I begin, I would like to thank Brian for listening to and advocating on behalf of the parent community of LCCA and leaving his signature off the dismissive letter recently sent by the rest of the board. My hope is you take the torch lit by Taryn and carry it forward. However, as the saying goes, then there was one. There is discussion tonight regarding the Board of Code of Conduct and Conflict of Interest policy. It's my belief there are clearly several conflicts of interest, both real and perceived, with the current makeup of the board. While not against the policy, as that is more directed towards monetary gain, I feel the following needs to be addressed, and at the very least made public. Skylar and Tracy are very good friends, family friends with Margaret. Tracy's such a good friend, I understand that she and Margaret even vacation together. How honestly can either of these members evaluate Margaret's performance, especially as it comes to compensation or disciplinary matters? Will they recuse themselves under Article 3, Section 2? Randy's wife works with Christina at Hillsdale. If a policy or governance change was brought that may not be considered a Hillsdale best practice, but would benefit the LCCA community, do these members side with not upsetting their employer before the good of the school? How can we know that LCCA is being put first when that may involve biting the very hand that feeds them? Tom's children attend Hillsdale, and it was his company that sent out the survey last year, which logically meant he had direct and full access to anonymous information. That was not mentioned or transparent prior to the survey going out. I only noticed when I clicked the link, it was pointed directly to Brannigan. I highly suggest an ex-board member or two are not so closely related to any of the current members or administrators. Additionally, it should be a high priority to find someone who has experience running a public school to avoid the many pitfalls we have been seeing, such as with the LCCA Care Science fundraising. The current, that was there. As a Bob's once formally asked in Office Space, what do you do here? You have advocated all responsibility of the school to Margaret. You rubber stamp everything she brings you. When parents email the board about frustrations with policies of the administration, the board directs them back to admin, stating they don't handle operational issues, even though you approve all operational issues via the handbook and all of the policies. So I ask you, before the school existed, were you constantly writing your local school board asking why they don't put all the power in the superintendent? Did you demand your local school board rubber stamp everything admin brought to them? Did you insist they limit the amount of time the community has each month to address the board so they can all get to bed at a reasonable time? I highly doubt you would answer any of those facetious questions with a yes. So why is this happening at LCCA? The school founded on educational freedom, where parents choose to send their children. The school itself teaches a fundamental value and necessity of divided but equal governance for a reason, because it works. If LCCA continues on the path of one-person rule, I would like to remind everyone here and listening to the recording of the saying, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Thank you.
As I mentioned, we're going to have more decorum at these meetings. So I would like to respond to 2 points that you just made. One, it relates directly to emails that the board received prior to our last closed session. And as I read them, they were filled with sweeping accusations and a veiled threat against the board and things that weren't reflective at all of what that closed session was about. At issue in that closed session very simply was, can any board member operate outside of the code of conduct and board policies? That was it. So my concern is that information is being shared that's false, that is causing people to be misled and is causing disruptions. The other thing I wanted to say about that survey is that survey was created and fielded entirely by a third party. So the upfront of what you said is absolutely false. Brannigan has an account with that company, but had no access. The school had access to the results. Who's our next speaker?
Erica Urban.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi. I'm Erica Urban. I have been to many board meetings, and I still wanted to thank you guys for being here for this. And I know that this has been a big change, and it's been very hard and emotional. I'm going to try to keep this quick. I emailed you guys before the last one with my support of Taryn, and I just want to reiterate that I think it's very important for parents to be on this board. This is not a business. These are our children that you guys are making every decision for. I also was a little confused as to the voting of the last time. I heard 2 yeas and only 1 nay. Where were the rest of the votes for the board? And then I know you don't want any disruption, so it will be silent, but who stands with Taryn here? Stand up. Thank you.
And again, if we continue to have disruptions, it will affect the way we run these meetings. Please stop. Please stop.
You can't
Who's the next
silence
person?
us.
Not trying to.
Karen.
Not trying to. That's untrue.
Hi. I am going to read an email that I sent that was not responded to, like several other emails that I have sent. And this is so that everyone can hear how this was written.
What's
not
the
threatening
topic?
in a way. The topic is conflict of interest. Dear Mr. Brannigan, thank you for stepping up to take the role of interim board president for LCCA. I appreciate your enthusiasm and engagement with parents and your thoughtful devotion to uphold the mission and vision of the school. I also appreciate everything Christina has done. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't have a school. For this, I will be forever grateful. I know she has worked diligently these past 3 years and has been in the throes of all that it takes to found and head up the board of a brand new Hillsdale Charter School. Thank you, Christina. I am sure this has come at great sacrifice. I am so happy for her that she's being acknowledged by Hillsdale and is able to take on such a new exciting venture. In light of this new venture, however, I cannot help but wonder how her new position at Hillsdale is not a conflict of interest for her continued presence on the board of a BCSI school. I understand that many on the board, all but one now actually, either have personal ties to Hillsdale or personal ties to administration, all of which have been confirmed by several others that these are just facts. They're not rumors, they're facts. Although I understand why some may see this as positive, it concerns me from the standpoint of having balanced, unbiased voices representing not only the school but the parent community. Personal ties tend to put blinders on otherwise highly capable and observant individuals who, unbeknownst even to themselves, may be more apt to drink the proverbial Kool-Aid. To the parent community at large, a board heavy with personal ties can come across as being, quote, padded. But specific to a member of the board being actually employed by Hillsdale, this feels like a serious conflict of interest and is a concern. I welcome your thoughts and perspective and appreciate your due diligence in leading the board forward with integrity, balance, and thoughtful oversight. Respectfully, Karen Sharkey. I sent that email over a month ago and have not received a single response, nor even an acknowledgement of receipt. I am also questioning if parents are not allowed to silently stand or to clap, how is that not decorum? It feels like, we signed up for a classical school, not a Hillsdale Military Academy. We have a board that does not keep open meeting laws, does not serve as equal members. My understanding is several people have expressed interest to the board, to 2 members of the board, that other members of the board did not even know that there was interest expressed. They do not conform to their own policies, they pass agenda items even when there are legal concerns, nor do they express concerns of financial misappropriation, and it is now systematically silencing parent concerns. So my question is, what exactly is the purpose of the board? Why even have the principal's report? If you are not going to actually have oversight of the school and of what is happening in and around the school, why do you exist? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move on to our treasurer's report. Brian?
Is that 3? 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Will be relatively short, considering we covered the preliminary budget last month and had a fair amount of discussion on that. So year-end cash ended just a tick below 2.7 million compared to 1.7 million at the end of last year. So about $1 million higher year over year. Current operating account balance at Waukesha State Bank, a little over 400,000 plus 2.3 million in 2 different interest-bearing accounts. So as we had discussed last month, the reason for the improvement in the cash is a result of the operating expenses being 17.4% below the budget, about 1.3 million, partially offset by revenue being slightly below budget also at 437,000. So the difference between those two is the reason why we're up $1 million compared to the end of last year. Margaret and her team are working through cash projections for this coming year, so we'll have some things to report on in the next board meeting about go forward into the next school year. As far as overall liquidity goes, we remain in a very strong position at 128 days cash on hand. That is about $1.4 million higher than 60 days cash on hand, which is generally considered excellent.
Could you repeat that? The last thing you said? I'm not a finance guy.
We are about $1.4 million higher than what a 60-day cash on hand position would be, which is generally considered excellent. The line of credit of $500,000 remains undrawn. I know, Randy, we had some discussion last month about the prudence of maybe talking to the bank about increasing that, considering some of our needs. I'm aware that Mark and her team are investigating that. They won't speak to it anymore, but maybe we'll have some more information on that soon.
Anything else, any discussion or question?
I mean, I just want to make a comment similar to what you said, Tom. The comment about financial misappropriation or mismanagement, I think, to have a financial statement grow in the right direction that we have, Brian, I think, I appreciate the hard work that you put into that, first of all. But the administration is the one who carries out the day-to-day finances, and a comment that was just made about financial misappropriation, I think is a bit misguided. Are there lessons learned, perhaps, that as we move forward of how we communicate to our community about fundraising, things like that, that can be learned? Absolutely. But to make an accusation against financial mismanagement like that, I think is a very slippery slope. But I certainly think that there's lessons learned from that experience, which I think was alluded to in that comment, related to the Day of Giving. But I would strongly suggest that as an organization to have, continue to improve finances speaks to the financial stewardship of our executive team. And I appreciate the work that you put into it as well, Brian, so thank you.
Okay. Move to head principal's report. Margaret.
Thank you. You should have a copy of the head principal's report that you received last week, and I'm just going to touch on the highlights and draw those to your attention on information that covers the last month. As we close out the school year, we're looking to assess our charter goals and measurement, and so you can see that beyond the assessment measurement based on standardized test scores that we have not yet received, we have met each standard and each performance measure set forth by our authorizer in our charter agreement. And moving on from that, looking at page 4 of my report, I know you had some questions looking for just a snapshot of maybe retention and enrollment, so I did pull from a moving target a little bit of information. You can see the counts per grade level that we ended the 23-24 school year, and you can see that we have 56 of those students not returning as of last week when I compiled my report. And also I included the current responses from exit surveys that families who have withdrawn a student receive. And thus far, we have had 11 responses. 4 of those responses are 2 sets of parents from the same household. But that chart below shows the 56 withdrawn students equates to 43 families with withdrawn students. And the number of families that fully withdrew is 32. So some of those families do have some students still remaining here. Again, the number of submitted survey responses was 11, and for 2 sets of parents from the same household. 2 families, their main reason for leaving LCCA was moving out of state. 1 response referenced culture at West. 3 responses referenced either athletic or extracurricular options, looking for a greater variety there. 4 responses spoke to leadership and administration, and 1 response was in reference to needing different opportunities for a special education student. Moving forward then, in my report, I'm going to look at the financials for the last month. Some business office highlights. For your information, our liability insurance coverage annually gets reviewed, and the D&O liability limit is $5 million in our commercial package with an additional $5 million limit on the umbrella package. Our debt to asset ratio is 0.1, and we did change our audit firm over the last month in order to accommodate an expedited audit with completion date of October 11th, which gives us an advantage and is beneficial to our pursuit of financing for our One Campus project. So really significant preparations are underway for that upcoming audit, as it's a little bit more time intensive with the shortened timeline and the expedited start date, so we're focused on that as well. We also, as I'll mention later, are continuing our hiring process and are making some plans for onboarding new hires. I hope to put out a communication soon with an update on new employees coming on board for the next school year. If you're looking at our income statement, you'll notice that the majority of the revenue received in June was the final per pupil payment from the state. And our expenditures were really monthly payments to facility vendors, as well as finalizing some gala expenses, purchasing textbooks and furniture that we put toward the reimbursement charter grant. If you look then at the budget versus actual report, you'll notice that revenue is more than budgeted for school activity income, student fees, and fundraising and gifts. We also are at 98.2% of the budgeted amount for salaries and part-time employees. But we are at closing out the fiscal year, so we're 12 out of 12 months, or 100% of that fiscal year. Purchase services was a little bit lower than budgeted because anticipated one-campus expenses have not been accounted for to date. If you are then looking at the bank reconciliation report, you'll note that the June bank statement for the checking account is reconciled to the ending balance of $532,131 and some change. I'll get to some reclassification of Fund 21 enrichment classes to Fund 10, which is a general operating fund. That's being resolved. And our money market account reconciles to the ending balance of $1,514,507 and some change. We are taking in student user fees for as students finalize their enrollment, some Medicaid revenue, and some general donations. And many of the checks processed in June were just standard monthly and quarterly operating expenses.
Question on the cash balance. I don't know if this is a question for Brian or Margaret. I know our needs may change with the one campus project, but with a money market account, obviously the rates are probably pretty favorable right now, but is there some ability to secure a longer term return that's guaranteed through like a CD that might be slightly improved, and do we have the opportunity to do that?
We actually are working on that right now. It's in the works, so I didn't have enough information to share with you this board report, but in the next board report, we have moved some money and are in the process of making our money work most advantageously for us, because cash on hand is so significant to our advantages when we go to market for bond financing. So we are really trying to establish as much in our favor now before we move in that direction. I'll have more for you in a month's time.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 6 of your report, I just wanted to draw your attention to the high school student GPA overall report and point out that 46 of 74 high school students have a GPA within a 3-point and a 4-point, which is a B- to an A+. So that is 62% of LCCA high school students are performing at an above average level. And you can see then on the next page, there's a snapshot of our ACT results of the 18 11th grade students who took the ACT this year. And there's a distribution of their achievement. And then if you look at the second chart, you'll notice that based on the definitions that the ACT provides about above average, average, and below average scores, we had 4 students achieve an above average score, which is a 25 to a 36 on the ACT. We had 13 11th grade students receive an average score, which is a 17 to a 24. And we had 1 student who received a below average score, which is 1 through 16. So that is great data for us, our first 11th grade class, and it'll be good to start receiving and taking note of that data as we continue to grow and prosper our high school. Moving on, I wanted to circle back and give you note that the administrative team has reviewed and deliberated over the family survey results once more, and we've determined 3 initiatives to be implemented to address culture development at West. And those 3 initiatives will be the implementation of student council in 9th through 12th grade, so the high school, as well as a house system in 7th through 12th grade, so that would be West. And we've also implemented the position of Dean of Students at the West campus for this upcoming school year. And the details and the organization and the design of those things is well underway. We've got some teachers working on sharing their ideas and really partnering with some parents actually to get some different house mascots and colors and mottos and all of those things. So we're very excited to roll out both the student council and the house system at West Campus this coming school year. And we know that a dean of students will also help us to better administer, promote positive culture and community at that campus.
I apologize for my ignorance, but could you explain what a house system is?
Yeah,
a
what
bit
he
more?
said.
So it's essentially giving students a core group within the broader school community with which they will identify, and then we'll prosper some internal healthy competition, and they'll have different ways to interact with one another. I know if you haven't seen or read or watched Harry Potter, it's hard to know what they are, but it's a great way. There are lots of Hillsdale schools as well as other classical schools across the country who use the house system to inspire camaraderie among their students and a sense of community within community.
Understand.
Yeah, sure. Let's see, where was I? Oh, so moving on, I wanted to share as well about the Hillsdale's 11th annual summer conference has come and gone already. And LCCA had 21 returning employees, so teachers from last year who are returning, 21 returning employees, and actually 5 new hires attend 1 or more sessions of that conference. So we had really good representation. And they did run the conference in a new fashion this summer where they had a track for new hires across the network, and they ran specific training and presentations for any teachers that are newly hired on to a Hillsdale school, and then they ran their regular track of opportunities and presentations for teachers and faculty members who have some years or lots of years of experience at the given school. So all in all, it was an excellent experience, and I'm really pleased with the teachers who voluntarily go on their own summer time to participate in that professional development opportunity. We also had an opportunity to look at the quarterly report from the Marketing and Communications Department, as well as the Advancement and Donor Relations Department. So I'm sure you're impressed and know and can see that we have lots of good things going on in both of those 2 new departments at LCCA. And that concludes my report for the month.
Any questions or additional discussion?
Just one question, Margaret. Thanks for the exit survey results. Just what is the base of families? I know we look at things in students, and you gave us the breakout of like families. How many families do we have in the school?
300, over 325, I believe. I don't have that. It's over 300.
Okay, thanks.
I had a comment to make. It wasn't specifically in a leadership report, but I think we've had 2 public hearings at the Village of Summit since the last board meeting, right?
At least 2. Yes, I was there on Thursday last week,
Yeah.
and I'm going back tomorrow. Yep.
I went to one of them,
There
and
was
I have
one-
to say there's a lot of hard work going into that. So, especially if you sat through the last Village of Summit meeting, got to learn a lot about no wake votes.
About what?
No wake votes. That was before us.
Got
But
it.
I know there's a lot of hard work going into that. Eric was there. Appreciate all the time and effort you guys are putting into that and going to those. Important. We're making good progress there. So just wanted to mention that. On the marketing report and the donor report, are there any specific highlights that you thought are noteworthy? I mean, I had a chance to read through it, but there's a lot of great content there.
I think our marketing efforts that are getting in place now, especially with the, if it's niche.com or niche.com, people say it different ways, but there's a lot of time and effort going into developing that profile for LCCA, and the data that was included in that report on the response rate and the hits that we're getting on that account are really significant, and I'm really pleased with the progress there. The advancement and donor relations report shows that we're making clear progress in establishing some parameters and policies and procedures that will be implementing moving forward, and great progress on the part of Ms. Appleby and of just getting to know LCCA and establishing her understanding so that she can be a representative of our school when she meets with donors and seeks to form relationships with people who are looking to support us. So both the marketing communications manager and the director of advancement and donor relations are working really hard and getting a lot established and a lot of foundation laid for those two departments moving forward.
How often will you be including that in your leadership report?
Quarterly.
Quarterly, okay. On the, what is the dean of students exactly? Is that a permanent role within the organization?
It is.
How does
Yep.
that differ from
So
a
dean of
college
students,
counselor or
we
assistant
have a
principal?
roles and responsibilities definition that I can share to you if you're interested. But in a nutshell, a dean of students spends the majority of his or her time focused on culture and community, as well as student-teacher relationships, as well as student management or disciplinarian, as well as just a lot of involvement in the ins and outs of the day-to-day, very present in the halls, supervisory roles, the first point of contact to the students with their concerns, so very involved in the upcoming student council. And so many schools have a dean of students who is the first point of contact for student and parent concerns or student and parent praises, and really is main focus is culture, community, and in this case, nurturing of a joy-filled environment.
Okay.
So that's our hope.
Great. Sounds like a really good role. Regarding really just two last questions, so just be real quick.
No.
Regarding the 56 withdrawn students, is that measured from the end of the school year, or does that include any that withdrew intra-year?
That includes any that return their intent to return as a no.
Okay, so if anybody withdrew prior to January, that wouldn't be in the number.
Anyone who is not intending to either return or has withdrawn instead of returning for next school year.
Okay.
It's not
So
any
that
students
includes-
that withdrew in the 23-24 school year. It's based solely upon how many students are we retaining and how many students are choosing to leave at the close of the previous school year. So that's 56
Okay.
at this time.
Okay. And then on the GPA report, I was looking through what you presented last year, and if I'm looking at it right, I believe, because you had presented numbers somewhat similarly, we had 29 of 62 students at or below 3.0, so that would be 53% students above 3.0. So this year, we would be at 63%, would be an improvement from the prior year. That's what it looks like based on your leadership report from last year. in
It's a
July.
little, we have an additional grade level in that mix this
Okay.
year compared to the previous year, so I'm not so sure that they're as comparable as that, but the trend is positive,
Okay,
yes.
I see, okay. I guess my last question is, on the GPA report, that's for 9, 10, 11, does that include the students that withdrew also? Like, it's everybody, not just the students that are not returning?
The GPA report is the cumulative GPAs of all students who finished the 23-24
Okay.
school year enrolled at LCCA.
Enrolled for next year?
No, just when we closed the school year, all
Yeah.
of those students,
Okay.
all of their cumulative GPAs is the data point,
Gotcha.
regardless if they're returning or not.
All right. Gotcha. So we can't draw an exact correlation year over year because we added more students in the upper grades, but it's still.
Once we have years on end of a full 9 through 12, I think we'll be able to mark a little bit more consistency because we'll have the GPAs of 9th through 12th grade again and again and again.
Okay. Oh, I forgot, I did have one more, sorry. I noticed you mentioned last month, we thought we did get the extra waiver cohort grant awarded for
We did.
$500,000.
Mhm.
I saw that in Upload. Is it all need to be used next school year, the 500,000, or is it gonna be like a multi-year thing like the original startup grant?
It's not multi-year, and we're actually in conversation with DPI right now. There are always allowable and some,
Right.
things that we can and can't spend it on. And so we're getting creative in what we need, and what we foresee would be beneficial and what they'll actually reimburse us for.
Okay.
And we're in conversations back and forth about
I see.
permission.
So since that was not in the revenue projection for next year, there could be some gains in revenue, but also some increases in expenses.
I
Do
suppose,
you
yes,
realize
you
it?
could look at it that way. Mhm.
All right.
But would it be a net positive of revenue that we wouldn't otherwise have, correct?
I would, so I don't know.
Do you want to speak to that?
No, because none of the expenses are factored in with that grant,
So they're expenses that we wouldn't otherwise have if we didn't have the grant.
right?
Okay. Well, so,
The strings on that grant are there, in a basis way, is to explain it, is it has to be expenses we incur as a startup.
okay.
So if we're trying to replace something, or, new laptops that are now 3 years old, it's no longer a startup expense, so it's no longer an allowable cost toward that grant. So it's a great chunk of money, but we can't, I would love to buy, I'm always like, I wish we could buy a vehicle so that we could have a pickup truck that would help us do all these facility needs, give Mr. Knapp an opportunity to be back and forth since he's our one-man campus manager. Vehicle's not allowed. So things like that where we have needs and we have desires and we have perspective on what would be advantageous, but it's not necessarily a cost that is allowed.
What about acquisition costs for our one campus project now? Okay.
No, that would go under what they call an expansion grant that we are not yet at the stage for which we can apply.
Okay.
Yep. Strings.
Anything else?
I promise, I'm good now.
There's some great questions. I
Yeah,
have two.
thank you. Okay.
On page 4, when you're talking about, I'm really interested in exit surveys. And it looks like you received 11 out of 56. That's about a 20% return. Is that math-ish accurate?
Sounds close.
Ish. I'm over my skis. But, so I'm wondering why it isn't higher. Do you have any sense of that? Because there's a lot of rich information that could come from those. Do you have a sense of, it went to everybody.
It did.
Do you have any sense?
No.
I know. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can increase that response rate to get closer to statistical reliability, because I'm sure you're getting interesting stuff, but I'd like to see more of a sample there. So that's one thing. I think 20% is good, but 40 or 50% would be great, or more would be great. The second thing is, has to do with the family survey, which, you did that exhaustive report on it. There's a lot of great stuff in there, but there was also some concerns that parents shared, and I like where you're going with this, and I like learning what house system is. Are there specific pieces of feedback that your solutions are addressing? Are there trends in feedback that you were like, oh, you and administration said, oh yeah, this is actually serious and we need to get our arms around it, and that's what this came out of?
Well, I think, as you recall, the summative report of those survey responses was overall very positive. But the main and clear majority of responses that were of concern or not less than positive were focused on culture at West or in our other schools, 7th grade and above. And so we're being very intentional about designing things specific to that overall main concern that was communicated through the survey. And I think by involving and having the teachers be the ones to really design and create and own the house system and the student council, these are initiatives that permeate all aspects of the school. So it's not just something administrative into the school, and it's not just
It's not a
something
one-to-one.
expectation on the student. It's really going to be all encompassing and meant to permeate all the different stakeholders of the West community. And we really feel strongly that these 3 things it's ambitious to implement
Sure.
a student council and the house system in the same year. But we feel that it's important, and bringing on or opening that Dean of Students role is a way to help us with those kind of really big projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the whole board would be interested to see how fast they can have an impact and what that impact is. So stay tuned, I guess, right?
Yep.
One of Tom's questions made me think about another question. On the survey results, the exit survey, I know like when we had our survey mid-year, we had just impeccable participation. And I know that involved a lot of follow-up. Just wondering if we have something like that, follow-up on the exit survey, as we just kind of sent once and parents tries to respond.
It's sent with confirmation, like you've received your request to withdraw, and here is a link to an exit survey. We would really appreciate your feedback so that we can know how we might learn and grow. But we aren't then hounding them if they're not responding.
I'm just wondering if, I know it's, they're leaving, but it just seems like very rich data, and the greater number we have, the more reliable it is.
I agree.
Just that kind of repetitive. So I'm just wondering if something as simple as like what you did, maybe not to that extent, just sort of a repeat test, might be a good reminder, and something that simple might help increase participation without a lot of extra effort on your part.
It's possible, yeah, we could send a reminder. It's hard to know, like, I wish I could speak for the people that aren't responding, but I don't know the train of thought there.
And I know you don't know, but I was thinking that's kind of a low risk, high reward, effort. Maybe follow up,
Agreed.
give another chance to yourself.
Great, I'll make them.
Okay, anything else? Going? All right, let's move on into new business. The first has to do with CISA, and the motion is to approve a reclassification of $15,820.03 to purchase services line item for services provided by CISA to the business office. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve that reclassification? Anybody want a second?
Second.
All right. I think what would help this discussion is if you kind of reset us on this.
Sure.
Because I know you brought it up in the past.
Yeah, so if you recall last month, I kind of gave you a forewarning. And we are reclassifying that dollar amount, a little over 15,000 of the purchase services line item to the CISA services because of the additional endeavors we took on this year, coupled with the fact that we did not end up hiring anyone in the business office. And so the business office salary line or salary component, we're just reclassifying to cover what we ended up spending to have CISA assist us with accounts payable, accounts receivable. As you recall, we converted our healthcare provider mid-year, and there was we needed CISA's help with the transfer of that. We implemented the Skyward user fee management platform and the implementation with the RevTrack third party, and we needed CISA's help with that. We also had Amazon implementation within our Skyward financing account. We needed CISA's help with that. And then we had to set up bank accounts for the investments that we made, and we needed CISA's help with that. So all in all, we're reclassifying the salary of the business office personnel that was not hired over the last year into the purchase services so that we can cover the cost of the extra work that CISA performed for us that we did not expect in the original design of that budget line item.
Is that, $15,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money. I imagine we had a lot more budget for that role, so
Correct.
it's a net positive.
That's correct.
To outsource that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure we could use the manpower, but.
Just a reclassification.
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, the motion will be to reclassify $15,000 from purchase services expense object 310 to CISA is what? Expense object 386, payment to CISA, that's the clarified motion.
Yeah.
It's
it's a reclassification.
$15,820.03 if you want your motion to be.
Yeah, we want
Dependent. Yes.
Right.
Sorry, can you clarify?
You're not moving it from purchase services to CISA, it's salary, just.
Oh, right.
Okay,
Salaries.
salaries, so.
Thank you. Mrs.
Line
Martin.
100, object 100, okay. Which we were $301,000 below budget for the year.
All right, all in favor of this reclassification? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Which brings us to our last request from administration, which is the approval of the 2024-25 board planning calendar. I assume and hope that everybody's had a chance to look at this. Margaret, is there anything you want to?
The only thing I noticed, I was looking at this one when I went through my own leadership report for this month, because it does start this month, and the approval of any enrollment policy revisions, I did not bring to the board this month. I would like to move that to being a September action item.
I'm sorry, which one?
Say that again.
The enrollment policy review, approval of revisions, where is it?
Enrollment reports?
Enrollment variance, I'm sorry? Searching, maybe this hasn't been edited since the last time I looked at it.
This has been in here for a little while.
Yep. Forgive me, maybe I read it wrong. Oh, no, there it is. Whew, not losing my mind. Line 28 says review, approve LCCA enrollment policy, and it has it listed in July. And I would like to push that to be a September item.
What's the rationale there?
We're doing so many other things in the summer, and it's not time sensitive to July. And we'd just like to get the next year up and running and then take care of it in September. We do want it in place before we start any enrollment information nights or enrollment marketing, but I don't have it done.
And just to clarify, the board planning calendar is really a board document that we just put together. It's a strategic planning oversight, just so we know.
But we're covering off on everything?
Yeah, just so we're monitoring everything we need to be monitoring. We know what's expected, so when we build our agendas, we can look at that month and say, here's what we need to be looking at this month. It just helps us in planning.
Yeah, that helps me with my leadership reports too, so I appreciate it.
And also, column Q, you'll see some highlighted in yellow. Those were things that were modified from last year's calendar. So you can see, these things in particular were what you were, to take a look at.
Any other discussion?
Looks like the enrollment policy in the board calendar last year was October, right? If I'm looking at it right, it was in October last year. I'm looking at last year's version, not this year's. So we're moving it up from October to September.
That would be helpful because October is, if you recall, a pretty heavy reporting month, because that's when I do synthesize all of the retention, enrollment data. And if I could put the enrollment policy for the next year in September, it would just be one less, let's space things out a little bit.
I did have a question. I wasn't sure. Just because the audit's different this year,
Yeah.
October, should that be when that's presented, presentation of final audit for adoption, what month should that be in?
I don't think that your October 11th is our normal week. Probably October. Instead of waiting until November.
Can we put it October or November, and if we have it and it's prepared and it's
Slide it.
done and we can bring it in October, we will.
Yeah.
But if we don't have it from the auditing firm yet for any reason
Mhm.
with that tight turnaround, then it would have to be November.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That's totally fine, and this
Okay.
is, some of these things can slide, it's not like this is set in stone, it's
Sure.
just presented then, but we just don't wanna lose sight. of
Right,
these items.
right.
So as long as you let us know I'm not ready, then you guys can line up.
Okay.
Is there any impact with the, I know we're expedited it because of the one campus. Is there any impact that we would need it sooner rather than later for that project?
The October 11th is the date that Baird has said, if you have it to us by now, or have it done by October 11th, it shouldn't have any negative effects. It will have the positive benefit that we need it to have.
And is there any approval process that we need to go through of a board to, I mean, we don't accept it, it's the auditors, you're just presenting it to us for review.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Can I have one other comment?
Absolutely not. Well, okay.
Yeah, for question.
Yeah, that's true.
On the culture update, the family staff satisfaction survey results, we have that biannually, which we had agreed to. And then they have the commentary about the full survey in the spring and the brief survey in the winter. I was just wondering, and then you have a corrective action plan after that. I was just wondering if it would be helpful for you if we separated the review of the results and the action plan, because you need some time to absorb that.
Thank you for bringing that up. Was the decision to do a winter and a spring still, or are we using the third party still? Because that's the expense of the two. I believe I only budgeted for the spring. I was unaware that the,
We had discussed it, though.
We just discussed it, yeah, I don't think it was a final thing.
Okay.
We talked about the possibility of it, of doing like one question in December, but if that's a cost issue, I don't know if it's necessary.
I think when we discussed it, that 2 to 3 was something more informal rather than having a third party do it. But I don't know if we needed it all, if we agreed to it. I had just started at that point. so
I don't recall or know what.
we should- to my recollection, we didn't agree to it, but I know we can't.
Yeah.
Or make a final decision, I should say.
What would be more recent information would be helpful, right, feedback.
Mhm.
But what would be the advantage of a 2 to 3 question survey? I mean, what kind of questions?
It's a pulse kind of thing, I think is what we discussed before. I think part of it is also compliance with the charter agreement, because that does say we need to do a survey biannually.
Yeah, if it says that, then, I mean, it could be something as simple as, what, I'm just throwing, spitballing ideas here, but is it a survey
Well,
monkey
I
type
think,
survey?
I
or-
think culture at West, with everything we're doing, would be a nice to see
Measurement. Yeah.
how well we're doing.
I think a pulse survey is a good way to describe what we talked about, just because a year was such a long time. If some other things cropped up, for parents to express.
I do want to just point out that I have had conversation with the authorizer charter agreement, and they're indifferent as to the number, because we did only do the one this year, and that was permissible by them.
If it's in writing, I mean, even if they say that verbally, if it's in writing, we should probably follow what they're.
It's gonna be in my email somewhere, if it was a conversation.
Yeah, I believe, I'm just saying in general, the charter agreement says we should do it twice a year.
Yeah.
I think we should, even if it's a short brief, I know it creates a little more work, but I think we should try to do it, even if they say, don't worry about it.
Well, why don't we leave it in for now? We can always research it further and see what the cost is gonna be and discuss it again in a couple months as we get closer.
So investigate the
Yeah, just
third party
investigate.
consultant that we worked with last year, what it would be to do like a mid-pulse,
Mhm.
smaller mini survey.
Sure.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that information.
And do you have thoughts, Margaret, then about the, I know we started there with
Yes.
the initial question about separating those two.
Yes,
groups
thank you.
sometime?
I do think, I would appreciate some time from receiving the results to creating any type of action plan or feedback. And as I mentioned before, the summer months really affords the administrative team some quality, reflective, contemplative time to think and design and formulate, brainstorm good responsive actions. So separation from sharing the results and having a response to the results would be helpful.
So July is if we do.
I think July would be
Fair.
especially if we're giving the survey towards the end of the school year. We had talked previously about the idea that having more of the school year under the belt, so to say, in order to give responsive feedback about it. So if the survey is more like a spring survey, then certainly we could use the summer months to really dig into it and come back to you in July with a strategic response.
Makes sense.
Okay. So, I think we're ready to vote. Are you ready to vote? So all in favor of this
One
plan?
last thing, I have one last thing.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I noticed, and this might just be a technical thing, there was a compliance thing that was dropped last year on the CSP grant mid-year and performance measures. Do we no longer need to provide that, or we need to add that back in?
I believe that's done.
It's
That's
done
why
now?
we took it out.
Yep.
Okay.
It expired with the expiration of that grant and they did not renew those requirements with the new grant.
Okay, understood.
Okay, ready to vote? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed, nay? Motion carried. So the last thing we have before we go into closed session is from a board development perspective. I'm gonna make a recommendation, so let me know if this is allowed. So, every year the board has to sign some documents, conflict of interest, code of conduct, etc. So what I'm gonna suggest, because we have a closed session after this, is that we adjourn the meeting, take a 10-minute break where board members can review this and sign, and don't feel pressured to sign if you need more time. And then we can reconvene, take a little break, and then go into our closed session. So with that, would anybody like a motion to adjourn this meeting
Actually, not to adjourn, but to bring the closed session.
with a break?
Yes, that's fine. Yes, you can definitely take a break.
See what I'm trying to do here?
Comfort break.
No,
I got a buffer zone
Yeah,
I'm
no,
trying to
we
create.
can, yes, into closed session, take a couple minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody like to move, for us to move into closed session with a break?
Yeah, under probably read the two
Sure.
statutes.
Yeah, this Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 to discuss the purchasing of public properties in which competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and Statute 19.851F considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific people, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, and the investigation of charges against specific people, except where paragraph B applies, which if discussed in public will likely have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
We didn't.
You're killing me. I thought I said motion before all that.
But we gotta get a second.
Okay.
All right, anybody want a motion?
Move. Second.
Second, vote.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I know. It's actually-
You know, I